It is 2 in the afternoon. A moving truck is parked in front of the house. Paul and Frank carry a mattress into the house. They've been friends since high school. About 18 years. Paul's wife Sarah walks into the house carrying a small box. She places the box on top of the kitchen table. Frank and Paul take the mattress into the front bedroom. They place the mattress against the wall. The frame is heavier, Paul says. Great, Frank sarcastically responds. He then asks, how many months is your wife at? Paul answers, 6 I believe. Frank laughs, it's coming. The two walk out the room. 7 p.m. that night. Sarah steps out of her small blue car and closes the door. She hears laughter. She turns and looks at the house next door. She hears more laughter. She smiles and walks into the house. She walks to the kitchen. She opens the cabinet and pulls out a pot. She hears more lots and looks out the kitchen window. She sees through the window next door a small clown jumping on the sofa laughing. She can hear it louder now. She closes the blinds of the kitchen window. Paul steps in. What's cooking? He asks. Spaghetti, she whispers, then comments, a clown next door. Paul is confused and says, what do you mean? I think a clown's living next door, she says. Oh, he says. 12 midnight. Paul is sleeping on the bed. Sarah lays next to him. She slowly gets up. She exits the room and walks into the kitchen. She walks to the cabinets and opens it and grabs a glass. She goes to the sink and turns it on. She gets water on the glass until it's half full. She turns the water off. She takes a sip. She turns around and sees out the window and is scared because across the house next door on the window is a tall clown smiling and looking at her. The clown has green curly hair, a red nose and red wide smile. It looks at her for 5 more seconds then waves at her. She gasps for air. The clown steps away from the window. She runs to the front door of the house and peeks through a window there. She sees the clown walk on the street past the front of her house and the clown keeps walking. She gets away from the window and gasps for air again. 8 a.m. the next morning. Sarah is home alone. Paul is at work. She sits on the sofa at the living room. The news is on the TV. A report of a girl found dead at a park last night is talked about on the news. No witness are reported. She feels scared again. She hears laughter coming from next door again. She walks to the kitchen. She closes the blinds again while looking down. Suddenly the laughter stops. She returns to the living room and turns the TV off. The doorbell rings. She walks to the front door and opens it slowly. The clown stands on the street on front of the house. It has an angry look on its face. The clown slowly turns away and walks away. Sarah slams the door close. Later in the day, it's 2 p.m. Sarah walks out of the house. She locks the door and rushes to her car on the driveway. She opens the car and gets in. She clicks the car lock. She takes a deep breath. She stares at the house next door. She noticed a sign by the door. It reads, "For sale," on the sign. She feels confused. She turns the car on and slowly drives away. It's 7 p.m. when Paul pulls onto the driveway in his car. He exits the car. Sarah drives behind his car and parks it. Sarah exits out of the car. A teenager walks by bouncing a basketball. Sarah walks up to him. She says, "Excuse me, can I ask if you live in the neighborhood?" The teenager stops and replies, "Yes, why?" Sarah clears her throat and says, "Well, we are new to the neighborhood and I wanted to ask if you know who lives in this house next door." The teenager answers, "No one is living there now." Sarah is confused and says, "But I've seen someone in there." The teenager says, "Well, no one is living there. Trust me, my father's a realtor and says he could never sell it. No one wants to live there because it's history." Paul whispers, "History?" The teenager says, "Yes, Mr. Rubbs died in there." Sarah is consumed in fear. She says, "Mr. Rubbs must be that clown." Paul asks, "What clown?" Sarah answers, "The clown I told you I saw in that house." The teenager says, "Cam Rubbs was a clown before his death. I gotta go now." The teenager runs off. Sarah says, "I'm so confused." Paul says, "He's a teenager, he probably doesn't know anything. Maybe made up the whole thing. You saw a clown in there. That's normal. People are clowns. So our neighbor's a clown, so what?" Sarah walks to the front of the house next door and Paul follows behind her. Paul asks, "What we doing?" Sarah points to the "For sale" sign on the door. Paul says, "Maybe he's reselling the house but still living in it until he does." Laughter is heard loud from inside the house. They walk to the gate of the house and open the gate door and step into the backyard. They walk to the back door and see it's cracked open. Sarah pushes it more open and walks in. Paul follows behind her. They are in the kitchen. It is dark. Laughter is heard again. They walk past the kitchen and to the front of the stairway. They look up the stairs and see the clown standing on top of the stairway. It smiles down on them then disappears. Paul feels scared for the first time. Sarah steps up the first step. Paul grabs her arm and says, "Are you crazy? We just saw a clown disappear and you want to go up there?" Sarah shakes her head and says, "I need to know what's up there." Paul says, "Fine, but let's be very careful." They move up the stairs and get to the top. They walk to the first door and Sarah opens it. It's an empty room. She steps inside it. Paul stands outside the door and Sarah looks around. The lights flicker outside the room. The door slams close and locks. Sarah pulls the doorknob and tries to open it from inside the room. Outside the room, Paul tries the same thing but the door wouldn't open. The lights keep flickering and the clown appears next to Paul. The clown is eating a bright red candy apple. Paul is freaked. The clown smiles at Paul. Paul runs down the stairs and reaches the bottom of the stairs. The clown is now standing in front of Paul at the bottom of the stairs. Paul says, "Sorry." The clown grabs Paul by the shoulder and squeezes it. The clown disappears. Paul stomps up the stairs. He kicks the first door open. Sarah says, "Great honey, let's go." Paul stands still, not moving, and smiles. He grabs Sarah by the hand and throws her down the stairs. Sarah rolls down the stairs and drops on the bottom floor. Paul stomps down the stairs. He stands over Sarah as he smiles wide and laughs. He wraps his hands around her throat. Minutes later, Paul walks out of the house. He dances down the street laughing.
D to this, D to this, D to this is the best YouTuber in the world. D to this, D to this, D to this is the best YouTuber in the world. D to this, D to this, D to this is the best YouTuber in the world. D to this, D to this, D to this is the best YouTuber in the world.